Welcome back to Adventures of a Black Belt Sommelier, sponsored by Four Paws Restaurant, the iconic fine dining restaurant in St. Paul, Minnesota, with wonderful food, attentive professional service, and wonderful wine, and pretty good wine service by yours truly. Um, my first ever major wine event was a tasting of Chateau Lynch that I moderated with Jean-Michel Caz, the owner of the winery in, I believe it was 1982. I was 30 years old, 500 people in a ballroom at the Lowe's Vanderbilt Plaza Hotel in Nashville, Tennessee, to taste Chateau Lynch with Jean-Michel Caz as part of the annual charity wine auction that we have had there for years and years. Um, I was, you can imagine, I was 30 years old. I was moderating a tasting for 500 people with this legendary man. Um, I think it's the most nervous I've ever been in my life. When the server poured the first wine, obviously it was a vertical tasting of Chateau Lynch Bage. Um, when they poured the first wine, I went to swirl my glass, as you do, and I swirled it much too hard, and I sprayed wine all over myself, my white shirt, all over Jean-Michel Caz, his white shirt, and all over people in the front row close to us. Um, it was very, very embarrassing, obviously. Um, but, it wasn't really the end of the world. It was kind of comic relief to start the tasting off. We kind of got everybody a little bit cleaned up and went on with the tasting. The tasting was a huge success, and it raised a lot of money for cancer-related causes in Middle Tennessee, as that event has for I think it's 47 years now. Millions and millions of dollars raised to support various cancer-related causes. We went on the tasting. The tasting was a success. Went on with the rest of the weekend, auction, etc. About 2 years later, I got on the train in Paris to go to Bordeaux, the TGV, and the seat we were sitting in were facing each other. I was sitting in the aisle seat. My wife was sitting to my left, and my son was sitting across from her, facing her. And lo and behold, Jean-Michel Caz sat down in the seat facing me. It never occurred to me that he would remember me. It was 2 years later, and he was really important, and I'm really not was not really important at all. But I really wasn't going to say anything. But when the porter came to ask if we'd like a water or espresso or anything, um, Jean-Michel Caz pointed at me and said, "Whatever you do, don't give that guy a glass of red wine." And we had a big laugh, and we chatted for the time that had a great time talking to him on the way to Bordeaux. Um, so I have this warm spot in my heart, but for Chateau Lynch but also, post-traumatic stress disorder from the memory of that moment when I sprayed wine all over everybody in front of 500 people. Um, Having said all that, this week I opened a bottle and tasted or had a glass of a generous glass of 2000 Chateau Lynch Bage. Obviously, 2000 is a very great vintage for Bordeaux, and this bottle of 2000 Lynch Bage was absolute perfection. Um, it was classic, mature, left bank Cabernet Sauvignon based Pauillac. It was superb. The tannins were resolved. The oak was resolved. It had all the classic characters of mature, really excellent left bank Bordeaux from a great vintage. It had everything: the graphite, the lead pencil, the cigar box, the dark fruits, the flowers, the lavender. Um, Beautiful texture in the mouth, long finish. Um, the nose was so beautiful. and just all those classic characteristics of really, really high quality red Bordeaux. That, as I said, the cigar box, the lead pencil, pencil shavings, menthol, graphite, iron, uh, you know, and then the dark fruits, the black currants, blackberries, um, beautiful mouthfeel, long finish. This bottle of this wine on this night in this glass in that room was, I would say, about as good as Bordeaux gets. I'm not going to say it's the equal of, some of the great wines I've tasted, the 61 Latour or the 82 Petrus I tasted recently. Of course, that's a completely different wine because there's no Cabernet Sauvignon in it. But this was, you know, this bottle was absolute perfection. If you forced me into a corner and put a gun to my head and say give it a score, I'd have to give it 100 points. This bottle, um, it was magnificent. I just checked on Wine Searcher. You can find it for about $400 a bottle. As I frequently say, if you can afford $400 a bottle, you should buy all of this that you can get because it is an absolutely sensational, memorable, beautiful, special wine. And it just clearly illustrates why we have wine cellars and why we let wine age, because this wine, 10 years ago would have been fabulous, but it wouldn't have been nearly as fabulous as it was this year. It was, gosh, I'm lucky these days that I get to drink so much really great wine because of generous people in my life. Thanks for tuning in to Adventures of a Black Belt Sommelier. We appreciate it every time you do. And I hope you're having a wonderful week and wonderful day. And as I said, thank you.